We're beginning to show some progress on our Santa face, so I'd like to move along with it today. We have already established pretty much most of the main features of his face. You can see where his eyelids are, his cheeks, his nose, his mouth. But we haven't really added a lot of true flesh color yet. Now, if you were painting with oil paint, you could do a lot of blending wet into wet, and you could achieve a lot of those fleshy tones that way. But with the acrylic paint that dries fast, it's harder to blend wet into wet. So I've come up with this idea of laying on glazes or washes in order to get the subtle colors into the flesh tones. So our next step for this face is going to be to wash or glaze the face with a yellow color. I'm going to be using raw sienna. You just want to make sure that the face is completely nice and dry. You can mix a little puddle of paint plus water on your palette. It's just raw sienna and water. And I'm just going to lay that right on the face. On your camera, it's going to get a little shiny. You might not be able to see it too well until it dries all the way, but because it's wet and it reflects the light. But we're going to let that dry. I'm going to take it to the dryer now so that I can go on with the next step. Okay, we're dry now, and I've let the surface cool. I've just used a hairdryer on it. Hairdryers are wonderful things, aren't they? Do everything from dry your hair to dry your paint, to warm your bed at night, whatever you want to use them for. So now I am going to use a color that I call light flesh. Generally it's just your flesh tone, whatever you're using for flesh tone, with white added. Normally it's approximately 2 parts white to 1 part flesh tone, but you can adjust it as needed. So now that we've got our yellow tint onto the face, I'm going to come back with my light flesh. We haven't thought too much about light values up to this point. We've mostly been creating medium values and dark values. So now I want to start creating some of those lighter values. But in order to get a real contoured look to the face, we want to have as many values as possible. So even though I'm adding a light value at this point, I'm still going to be blending some dark value into it in order to create some medium darks, medium lights, and just create as many values as I possibly can on the face. That's what's going to give it the contour. So you're going to see me doing pretty much everything that I've already done. I am not going to add anything to the lip. I want that yellow wash or glaze, whichever one you want to call it. I want that just to be on the lip now. I don't want to do anything else to it. I'm not going to add a lot of this light flesh to the lid area, but I am going to add just a little bit. I'll pick up my liner brush, and I'm not going to have very much paint on the brush. I just want to just add the littlest bit, because I don't want this to be a really light area on the face. It's lighter than the dark places on the face, but it's not a super light. It's not a place where you want to put super light color. Alright, a little bit under. Okay, then I'm going back to my round blender, and I'm going to dry brush in the wrinkled area on the forehead. We want to make sure the nose joins up to the forehead, so don't leave a big spot there where the nose ends and the forehead starts. Make sure you stipple or dry brush, tap some color in there to join that up. We don't need any more light on the chin. The chin is just going to be a medium value when we're finished, so we don't want to put any light color in there. We basically, it's just these few little areas. You might start thinking about a little bit of the detail. Maybe with a smaller brush you would go on to this wrinkled area and start using just a little more light in that wrinkled area. We don't want the wrinkles to really be prominent when we're done, so we just add a little bit of color at a time. just a little bit, and you can always add more later. Okay, then once you have the light in there, in order to have it be blended, you have to pick up your dark color. So that's going to be my burnt sienna or brown earth, and I'm going to do that like we did before, dry rub. So now I'm going to kind of be doing the same thing I did before. This time though, I'm being just a little bit more careful to get some of these dark areas right where I want them. So I'm just going to paint back and forth between my light flesh mix and my brown earth or burnt sienna, and I'm just going to paint, and you can see that I'm just going to do little bits of color at a time until I like the way it looks. You can go back and forth as many times as you need to get it to blend. The main thing is you want a good blend. You want a good gradation between your values, and you want them to look nice and round and fat. So however many time it takes. Now you probably saw me adding a few things. After looking at my original painting, I picked up on the fact that there's some light here on the inside part of the nasolabial fold right in here. So check your photograph. You'll see that there's some light behind his mustache here. Also, I added some reflected light and reshaped the very bottom edge of his nose, so that now we have light, dark, light. So we need to have that reflected light right along the bottom. And all I did was go back and forth a couple times between my dark brown earth or burnt sienna and my light flesh. I'm seeing now pretty good shape, pretty good value, gradation. I kind of like the way it looks. So I'm going to go on to the next step. Next step now. Before we do, maybe it would be a good idea to check your acetate again, just to make sure that when you put in your lights, you stippled and dry rubbed and dry brushed and did all those things, that you didn't add any little pieces of light or dark someplace where they shouldn't be. So it might be a good idea to go ahead and either flip your acetate back down or put it back on. Like I said, I think it's a good idea to keep it there so that you can flip it up and down whenever you need to. So check your details, make sure you've got those right. Now we want to put some blush on, and I never put the blush on one time. I always put the blush on several times because I like to kind of sneak up on it, do a little bit at a time, and that way I don't overdo it. If you're painting with the Josonia paint, it's a good idea to use some gel retarder. You can cover the face with the gel retarder and then blot it a little bit so that you don't have too much. So what you would do, you'd take maybe your nice oval blender or a flat blender and just brush the gel retarder over the whole face. Take your cloth and just pat it to remove any excess, and then you're ready to put your blush on. With the Golden Open, I'm just going to add a little bit of water to my brush, and I'm picking up a little bit of cadmium red light. Josonia would be Naphthol red light, and I work that into my brush, and I'm going to add that right where I see it in my photo. I'm just going to tap it. If you are using the Josonia paint, you're tapping that into your retarder, so it should blend out really well for you. Mostly we put the blush color where we see most of the shading. Like I said, I do this a number of times, so that means I just do it a little bit at a time. Santa has been to the beach on his vacation, got a little bit of a sunburn on his cheeks. He has nice big fat round cheeks, so the sun hits up there at the top of the cheeks. So we got a little bit of a sunburn, but don't worry, it's going to turn tan. He'll be a tan Santa. Your gel retarder should still be wet if you're using the Josonia paint. If you're using the Golden, just keep picking up a little tiny bit of paint and a little bit of water, tiny bit of water, and with a very light touch, just blend this on wherever you want it. If you get some into the light areas on the cheek, don't worry, because we're still going to go back and put some of our light flesh in there. We're not going to do that while the red is wet or while the red is fresh, because it's going to turn really hot pink if we do. So we're going to go a little step by step. Now I want to get some into that dark area of his nose. If I do get it down there into that reflected light area, I'll just put the reflected light back in another step. And that red is going just a little bit further than I want it to, but that's okay because it'll blend with the light when I put the light back on. Now on the lip, here's where a lot of people kind of overdo it a little bit and get messed up. I'm going to stain the lip. I'm not going to paint the lip. I'm not going to blush the lip. All I'm going to do is stain it with a tiny little bit of the red, mostly water or gel medium. If you've got the gel retarder on the face, it should still be wet on the lip, and that'll keep you from adding too much. So all we want to do is just rub on the thinnest layer of red onto that lip. And I'm going to put it on the upper lip as well. It's going to be darker because that part of the lip has a lot more of the brown on it, so it'll be a darker color, but we do want to have a little bit of the red, and you can just kind of gently push that up towards the nose. You don't have to worry about creating detail with that. Okay, now while that is drying, we're going to put some, we're going to start on the eyes. So we're going to use some dark white. With the Jasonia, you could just use smoked pearl. I'm going to use the golden, it's dark white plus burnt umber. Now, I'm just painting the eyes in with a kind of a dark white. So it's either smoked pearl or it's your titanium white plus burnt umber, or it could be warm white plus burnt umber. It isn't critical at this point because, again, we do layering on the eyeball as well as we do on the flesh. So we don't want to use a pure white color, so we just need to use a dark white. Make sure you paint your white all the way to your flesh color. Don't leave a little edge of your blue showing. Really, you probably only just need one application, one layer of this, and we'll let that dry. It looks a little spooky right now, but I think he's coming along nicely. Let's take a little closer look at the eyes now and start getting some of the detail in. In the corner, what we call the corner of the eye, near the nose, is what we commonly call the tear duct. This is called the canthus. It's very small, very vague. You don't want this to stick out. So you're going to use some flesh tone, use your tiny little brush, and just paint the canthus in with flesh tone. While that's drying, I'm going to start on the next step on the eye so that we can move right along. But I'm going to do it on the opposite eye so that I don't mess up that canthus. We're going to shade the white part of the eye with Payne's Gray. So I'm picking up a little bit of water on a small number 2 round Bringle blender, or you could use the number 4 spotter. And I'm picking up water, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of Payne's Gray on the tip of the brush, and I'm just going to push it right up there along the top of the eye. Basically, I'm going to be shading pretty much the whole top half of the eye. We want that to be shaded by the eyelid. And also over here in the corner next to the nose is shading it. Now, I think my canthus is dry enough. I can probably get into the other eye. Push that right up. My paint is on the tip of my brush, and I'm just kind of rubbing it and using the heel of the brush just a little bit with that water to blend it. If you turn the whole eye Payne's Gray, that's okay too. That'll work just fine. I never worry about things like that because anything like that can be fixed as you go along. We just want to have a nice smooth shading on there. Let's go back to the canthus now and add a little bit of shading. So I'm going to use my burnt sienna or brown earth, and on my liner brush I'm going to come into right up next to the nose. I'm just dabbing with the very, very tippy tip of my brush. I'm kind of just painting that area with the brown. And then I'm going to take a little bit of dark white or smoked pearl, and I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight right in there. And that may have to be kind of fixed up or refined a little bit as we go along, but for now you can get that in place. The next thing you want to do is to paint the irises. I'm going to use cerulean blue. You can use sapphire. When I paint an iris, I don't go in and outline the whole big circle. First of all, I make a line where I think the center of that iris is. In this case, I believe it's about right here. And here. Now once you have these lines in, you should be able to stand him up in front of you and talk to him. Now it sounds silly, but try to imagine that you're talking to a real person and that he's looking at you. Where is he looking? Is he looking, are both eyes looking at the same place? Is he looking at your shoulder? Is he looking at the top of your head? Which way is he looking, and are both eyes looking that same direction? Once I've determined that both eyes are looking in the same direction and they're looking in the direction I want them to look, then I'll go in and I'll begin to enlarge the iris a little bit at a time on both eyes so that they kind of grow up together, and that way I don't get them too big. I can add to them easily. And I don't have to go back and take out paint that I thought I wanted, but then turned out that I didn't. Let's back off a little bit so you can see how the overall effect is of the eyes. And I think at this point I've got him looking okay. Of course there's still a lot of work to be done on there, but I think I've got his eyes in the right place, and I'm ready for some of the detail. Now the next step on the face is we want to start seeing if he looks, if he looks like you want him to look. So in order to see that, we have to start seeing some of the beard and mustache, and then we can bring the detail of the eyes. We can start bringing some hair into his face. But before we can do that, we have to have a little bit of red on his suit underneath his beard. So the next time we paint, I'm going to talk a little bit, show you a little bit how to produce the red part of his suit and his hat, and we'll start doing some of that detail. Now I'm probably not going to do a lot of demonstrating on the toys. Most of that is the type of painting that you know how to do already, and I really wanted to just focus mostly on Santa's face this time. But I do love the red and the way that red looks, and plus we have to have it under there so that we can produce his beard. So next time we'll do red on the suit, and we'll get started on some of his facial hair. Until then, I hope you'll have a great time painting his face and his eyes. And I'll see you next time.